A storyline really close to my heart. Playing a character with HIV really opened my eyes as a teenager, helped me to grow up a lot.
We moved around a real lot, and I was always having to get into fights and having to prove myself.
Kimberly and Rick, the full story in their words. Soapography, Saturday at 6, only on SoapNet.
2 stars, 2 stories, next on Soapography. Who says you can't go home again? Rick Springfield is back as hunky Dr. Noah Drake. It's a homecoming more than 2 decades in the making.
I never get another chance in my life to play a character 23 years later. The freakiest thing, probably, of the first week and a half on it was doing a scene with Jackie Zeman again.
It's been a while, and both Rick and Noah have come a long way, baby.
After 23 years, I've got issues.
Next, Rick tells all about his past.
Vietnam, that was pretty insane.
The pressure of fame.
And I had finally got married and had kids, and that was a time that I just kind of hit a wall and said, I'm out of here.
And his pain.
So I was really contemplating, ending it all, and it was really very dark.
He's back at General Hospital as hottie Dr. Noah Drake.
Part of me wanted to go, that'd be so much fun. And the other part kind of said, well, I know, isn't that kind of like taking a step backwards?
The last time Rick was in Port Charles, his career was going full throttle. He was a daytime heartthrob and about to become a rock and roll sensation.
That summer, it all hooked up.
But what goes up must come down.
Pressure of it all and not getting any rest and not really kind of being on this rocket ride and needing a break. And then my dad dying, and that was a time that I just kind of hit a wall and said, I'm out of here.
Rick Springfield was born in Sydney, Australia in 1949 and spent his childhood moving from town to town.
My dad was in the Army, so we moved around a real lot. And I was always a new kid in town, so it was really kind of brutal, I was always having to get into fights and having to prove myself. And then I'd become good friends with those kids, and then I'd leave 2 years later for somewhere else.
The only thing he could count on was himself, so he turned inward.
I was kind of a loner, quite a loner.
It was at this point in 1960 that Rick turned to music to ease the pain and express his feelings.
I completely fell in love with guitars. And I used to carve them out of, not carve them, I'd saw them out of wood, really horrible attempts, but I'd try and make, paint them red and look in the living room window late at night so I could see my reflection and lip sync to all their records. And my parents eventually said, well, maybe we should get this kid a real guitar. It was my 13th birthday, and they said, what do you want? And I said, I guess a guitar.
Rick found the best teacher available, the stereo.
Oh, I never took lessons. I was always listening off records, and I learned by ear, and most of the kids did then. And the main thing is the passion of the music, and you just inhale it. Stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning on school nights playing music, and it was that was how I got into it.
Although he was barely a teenager, Rick began to write songs.
Love you. Now we're through. I have found somebody new. I've just got to try and forget you. But it's you I still love. Really, really horrible.
But that didn't keep Rick from grabbing a friend, forming a band, and putting on a show for his parents.
Yeah, that was amazing. Like this horrible little, cheesy little family show that we did for both our families and our brothers. And that was really the first kind of, moment of inhaling great success.
Within 2 years, Rick had dropped out of high school and was making a name for himself as a guitarist. In 1968, he joined members of the band Rockhouse and accepted an invitation to play in Vietnam.
Figured it would be a USO type show, and they'd protect us, and we'd play on a nice wooden stage like Bob Hope did. We'd get shot at and rocketed and mortared during shows, and it was an insane thing to do, but I had no idea, And discovered dope, and It was an absolutely insane time.
After his gig in Vietnam, Rick, ever the Aussie, returned home.
I joined a band in Australia called The Zoot, and we had some hits, and I started writing and for real and, getting publishing and that kind of thing. And then the band split up, and I had a hit in Australia by myself, a solo hit that I wrote, and that got me a deal over here in America, and came over in 1972.
But Rick soon found out life as an American rocker wasn't all it was cracked up to be.
When I was 22, when I first came over here, and I had a hit with the song that I'd had a hit with Australia called Speak to the Sky. And, you know, got all the teen magazines, started, you know, printing my picture and everything, and getting letters from young girls saying, I want to come to Hollywood and see your gigantic mansion, while I was living in this, you know, crappy apartment in Hollywood.
Coming up,
I'm glad that it didn't really happen then, you know, because they were saying, oh, he's the next David Cassidy.
Rick learns Hollywood isn't as glamorous as he thought it would be.
I was like living on the breadline in this apartment and raiding this big goofy money bank that I put quarters in, and so I was really kind of depressed.
Plus, the year it all came together.
It just like doubled the power of it.
Got more of Rick Springfield coming up. But first, it's time for our Soapography Star Quiz. Rick Springfield appeared with a GH co-star in the TV movie Dying to Dance in 2001. Was it Anthony Geary, Kimberly McCullough, or Jacqueline Zeman? All of this and more when Soapography returns. So which GH star appeared with Rick Springfield in the movie Dying to Dance? If you guessed B, Kimberly McCullough, you're right. Welcome back to Soapography. Australian rock sensation Rick Springfield traveled across an ocean to make it big in America, but his dream of fame and fortune fizzled.
They were saying, oh, he's the next David Cassidy and all this kind of stuff, and getting letters from young girls saying, I want to come to Hollywood and see your gigantic mansion, while I was living in this, you know, crappy apartment in Hollywood. My dad died at that point, too, which was a real kind of, you know, what? And that was a time that I just kind of hit a wall and said, I'm out of here.
Rick was down, but before he bailed out, he turned to another kind of performing to jumpstart his career.
Acting class, it was great, saved my life. I mean, I met all these great people, and I kind of fell under the community of actors.
In 1978, Rick started acting full-time.
When I'd do a scene that I felt like I'd actually connected to something, it was a real high, you know, and I got hooked on that.
With his acting star on the rise, suddenly his music career took off.
Finally got a record deal after probably 3 years.
By the start of 1981, his album Working Class Dog was in the can, but his agent was focused on the acting career and the role of Noah Drake on GH.
I said, soap opera, I don't know. I mean, what's that, like, how's that going to help me musically?
That was when Rick's agent offered to give Working Class Dog a listen.
And he said, well, that's okay, but it's probably going to, you know, maybe go on the top 100 and drop out in a couple of weeks. And that's exactly what had happened with my last 3 records. I said, oh, you're right, so I'll take the show.
So in the summer of '81, Rick put on his stethoscope and hit the halls of General Hospital. His two worlds were about to collide.
All these the same people that were listening to radio were also watching this soap opera, and it became, you know, the biggest show on TV for that summer. And at the same time, Jesse's Girl hit, and people started going, hey, wait, is this guy on TV? But so it just like doubled the power of it all.
The 1-2 punch success of the album and the show changed everything.
You know, I remember walking down my local street, and people kind of turning and going, wait, isn't that... And like 2 weeks before, I'd walk down the same street, and no one had even noticed I was there.
The next 2 years were a whirlwind for Rick. His song Jesse's Girl shot up to #1, and in 1982 earned him a Grammy for Best Male Vocal Performance.
So it was pretty freaky. I mean, it was like, what I mean is that it was nothing that I planned. It was just kind of meant to be what it was, you know.
Rick's musical career was exploding, and holding down his job at General Hospital got to be too much, so he left the show in 1983 to concentrate on his music. 3 more albums followed, but 2 long years later, Rick was ready to take a break. Rick came off the concert circuit in 1985 for the birth of his first son, Liam. A second son, Joshua, would follow.
It deepened my colors, is probably about the best way I could say it. Opened up a lot of doors for me inside myself, and psychologically and also writing-wise.
By 1988, Rick was ready to promote a new album, Rock of Life. That's when tragedy struck. Rick crashed his ATV, shattering his collarbone and making it impossible for him to hold a guitar. The tour was canceled, sales suffered, and so did Rick's career.
There's always a downside to everything. I mean, there's no perfect visualization. There's no perfect path to success in a career. There's always give and take.
For the next several years, Rick was content to make guest TV appearances and raise his kids. But his passion for music remained, and by 1998, he was ready to hit the road with the new album, Karma. Fan interest inspired Rick to release a greatest hit CD. A Vegas show, FX Alive, soon followed.
Find something, if you have a passion, follow that passion.
Rick's career was on the upswing, and things came full circle when General Hospital producers came knocking on Rick's door.
When they first called, I was kind of like, It was kind of like hit me. I didn't know what to think, It was part of me wanted to go, oh, that'd be so much fun. And the other part kind of said, well, I know, isn't that kind of like taking a step backwards?
The folks at GH convinced Rick when they made Noah Drake a much more complex role to play.
They were talking about really interesting issues with the character, which after 23 years, I've got, I got issues, so it's great stuff to work with.
Rick's return to General Hospital meant reconnecting with a lot of familiar and even intimate GH co-stars, like Noah's long-ago love interest, Bobby Spencer, played by Jacqueline Zeman.
Talking to her again, and the connection came right back. It was really, we both kind of finished the scene and kind of went, it was just like a little, wow, hi, how are you? Great to see you again kind of scene, but it was, we both kind of, wow. It was really, really interesting.
More than 20 years after he first appeared on General Hospital, Rick's life and career are on track. He's really savoring the ride the second time around.
It's more fun than it was back then because there's more to do, and it's the character has so much more going on. It's great for an actor.
On the whole week's worth of days before the new week begins. Spend Sunday nights in Salem. Coming up next, only on SoapNet, the new way to watch soaps.